He said take a village to raise a child. But what if the village is retarded?
What's going on? What's going on? This is this I'm not gonna give any spoilers to the movie if you haven't saw it. This is slightly about this movie, but more a bigger picture of what the characters in the movie, the main character with Taraji P. Henson, what it represents, and I'm kind of going to talk about some of the TikTok responses that I saw. Some were just, women was like, just emotionals because it was a very, um, is a very kind of sympathetic movie. Very similar. I'll just say it is very similar. Not giving any spoilers, but it's very similar. Basically, it's a black female version of Denzel Washington's movie John Q. Okay, just to put it in a perspective to like what it actually is about. Just it's kind of like that. Okay, so the thing is that some of the troubling perspectives that I got from this movie, from other people responding to it, mainly young black women or just even black women in general, is that Tyler Perry doesn't come out with more positive stories portraying black women. Their critique is Tyler Perry's movies is always some struggling single black female with a gang of kids and terrible men in their life. And I mean, yeah, I'm not necessarily a Tyler Perry fan. I mean, I respect his grind and his hustle. Um, I don't necessarily I'm not one of those people that was a church warrior that went to Tyler Perry plays and watched Tyler Perry plays when he was, in a character with Medea. Like I'm not one like I kind of like the post Medea era Tyler Perry where he's not necessarily trying to be center stage and play this character, which is pretty I would say leans towards the L Gibbet community type thing because he's literally dressing up as a woman. Really couldn't I could never get up I could never get down with that type of character or those movies that he played. That particular character, it was not something that I was pretty a fan of, nor was interested to even watch. Okay, mainly the Tyler Perry movies that I like was when he wasn't playing Medea as a character. Um, but the more perspective, as far as that perspective of him, or just I'll just say this movie per se, Straw. It kind of begs another question, which is why is this troubling? Why is this movie troubling, right? To black women, like why is this even something that even could be critiqued? Because honestly, I think that this movie should be played in every eighth grade, high school across America. If I had something to do with it, this will be required, basically a required movie that you have to write a paper to, one page paper, because this movie is very, I mean, a lot of times what it is black women like to have good PR because they think hive minded. They think like the community as a whole in regards to women, in regards to black women that look like them. They look at everything as bad PR. That's bad PR. And to this movie is just, it's another movie that adds bad PR to black women. And black women don't really like that. And they like the fantasy that everything is fine. A lot of the facade that I see black women on a day-to-day basis have is really not genuine. It's like it's basically, don't interrupt my fantasy. Let me be basically Delulu and pretend everything is fine. Um, and I think a lot of times, that's pretty much kind of standard. And you could kind of tell why things are all over the place, because if you got a bunch of people, a bunch of let's just say the primary women in your particular quote unquote community that is delusional to what's actually going on, and want everything to be portrayed in a certain high status, highlight, just everybody is doing well, when the statistics and reality is not that. Then you understand why everything is all fucked up, in regards to, basically black women having most of the custody of children. They are fully responsible for children, because that's just kind of how that's the actual play that is in the black community, to be basically matriarchal figures that have autonomy of children, irregardless of the man being in the household or not. In most cases, the man is not in the household, and they just don't really want the PR out there. They don't want that PR. They would like, I believe, a more generalistic or even above average PR to show that black women are getting goals accomplished and they're living their dreams. I mean, I think that they wanted the movie Straw to be basically, not to say, they wanted the movie to be her possibly being an investment broker, and basically a single mom by choice, and she's a high level trader that basically kicks ass, and she's went to Rutgers or Brown Business School, and she got pregnant by her boyfriend, and she's $1 million, you know, commission trader. Like, that's what they want, I believe, as far as a movie, that they would be like, like really proud of, or they would like, that's what I think, that's what they wanted from Tyler Perry from this movie. And unfortunately, it is women. Unfortunately, it is not that many women that are um multi-million dollar financial traders. That is just not reality. This is a very, very small percentage of black women that are in a reality where they're they make 1 million plus a year. That's very, very much fantastical, delusional, and not nowhere near the average, as far as what the reality of most women in America, in not including black women in America. That's just not the reality. The reality, unfortunately, is more close to that woman in Straw, the movie, and it's very far fetched, or kind of extreme, I will say, but it is a lot of women that are on the edge. A lot of people forget how many ghettos and lower socioeconomic communities that black people live in America. And I'm not just talking about in the Chicagoland area or Gary, Indiana, or even go as far past Detroit. I mean, you got to understand, it's pockets of black people all over America, as well as, the continental, like large metropolises like New York and, Los Angeles and Chicago. There's like tons of black people spread all around, and it's just the stats are the stats, and unfortunately, it's a lot more black communities that are on a lower socioeconomic level than they are high or upper class, you just say. It's not the case. And unfortunately, a lot of the case is just basically a lot of women living like that woman in that particular movie, in that movie Straw, where they're a single mom trying to be a single mom warrior. Maybe the boyfriend, the baby daddy is in prison, possibly might have died, possibly don't want to be bothered with the mother because she like to run her mouth, or she might be a little crazy, might be all over the place or whatever, or he just left or wasn't around, or maybe she just had a good time with some guy over a summer, and then she really, to be honest, was surprised that she got pregnant, and she just decided to try to do it the best way she can, but she don't even really know the guy's name, or even if the guy's, where the guy's from. He was visiting from, Memphis or somewhere, and he ain't really from the area where they originally met. I mean, it's all kind of scenarios, but either way, a lot of the case is just how it is. A lot of women are single and they're struggling. And I mean, their struggle is not unique, but their struggle is their struggle nonetheless, because they live the life that they live, and that is of being a single woman with children. Now, why they're single with children is a more bigger, broader question. And I think that from my observation, and me being obviously, a young elder, approaching, 50 years old, not too far from being 50 years old, I can wholeheartedly say probably most likely the number one reason why a lot of women choose to be single with children is because they really don't want to listen to a man. They really cannot, in many regards, listen to um, someone that they have to kind of listen to be honest. Let's just say a man living with a man, dealing with a man, is someone that they have to listen to. Even if it's a situation where they get a beta male simp or something, or a lower tiered simp, they still gonna have to deal with that man. They still have to talk to him. They have to, kind of deal with him. A lot of times they drive those men away eventually, because even a man that's a simp, he eventually, most simps eventually kind of, get fed up and move on, and then they, might try to find somebody to replace them or not. But either way, the main reason a lot of women choose to just basically live the life of being a single mother with children and definitely struggle is because they don't want to listen and be held accountable from a man in their own house. That's the number one reason. Like, I've seen it my whole life. A lot of women struggle because maybe, they didn't have that growing up, or maybe they saw their mom struggling with the man and she had to kind of capitulate to that man. Whatever the reason is, that's one of their biggest reasons why they choose to kind of like try to hold up trying to be a single mother and be independent, is they just really can't cohabitate with any man. That's why they can't really hold relationships with men long term. Um, I'm not saying all, but I would say it has become more of the standard. As far as, if you look at the divorce rates, if you look at the single rates, and also marriage rates, a lot of the reason why a lot of women have chose to be either single, and not even just single, actually go a step beyond being single and actually even being lesbian or bi, is because they really cannot deal with men outside of basically having sex. They can't really live and cohabitate with men. And that leads to, struggle, because at the end of the day, I'm a chess player. Okay. I like playing other games. I even like playing video games. But the core of my being, every day, not every day, but time from time, I think of chess. I think of, basically a chessboard, and a king and a queen. Okay. And when I see women trying to be, basically single and all of that, I know for a fact that it's not a win for them, because they're not playing the game of chess properly. And it's not necessarily a game. It's actually, this is actually how society has been, since we people don't really understand as far as anthropology. We move from basically kind of like hunter gatherers to large kingdoms, and basically we transitioning, I think, from kingdoms to some type of new age kind of dystopian sci-fi type of world, where it's like some type of technocracy, but we still have very much you know uh let's just say strings of the actual thousands and thousands of years of kingdoms, right? There was, over 10,000 years of different kingdoms, and those kingdoms were under some type of rulership, whether it be an emperor and an empress, or a king and a queen, right? And that's still to this day relevant. Most of the wealthy and elite and aristocratic individuals, they're still under that kingdom model. And that kingdom model is still, it's going out of being the standard, but it's still the power of this society that we live, on earth. This, worldwide global society is still under, you could call it the kingdom act, or the kingdom structure. And that's the family structure of man, woman, children, you know family, right? Some people say that basically a family is a husband, a wife, and children. And people that are probably feminists, or Marxists, or whatever, they challenge that notion of the nuclear family. Like, they say that a family is a single mother with children. And I beg to differ that I don't believe that necessarily a woman that has children is not part of a family, but I definitely believe that the father has a big part of that actual designation of having a family, because most cases the father has some type of role. If the woman knows the man or not, he has some type of role in that family tree, if they actually know his name. I mean, it depends, right? But it might be some question marks. It's, you got to look at it. I think, because I come from a big family. I come from a big family, and on my mom's side, my dad's side too. And when I think of, like, a family tree, like, I remember when I was younger, we used to do a lot of, family reunions and stuff. And they made a family tree, and they ask, other family members ask for names, and who's who, whose baby, what's the baby's name, on for your aunt's children or whatever. They were trying to add to this family tree, right? I know some people, man. I met people that they don't have no family reunion. They don't know. They know like their grandparents and stuff like that, but they're really distant. Like, it's some people, they don't have families in the sense of what you think. Like, they not having no family cookouts. Some people like are estranged from their family. It's a lot of different stuff going on, but you know, definitely I had family reunions and all kinds of stuff, man. Ongoing family gatherings when I mean basically when I was younger. Not so much now that I'm older, but basically from all of that, I was thinking about the family retreat, and it's gonna be a lot of question marks. If you had to do a family tree now, the woman might be like, okay, you asked, okay, who's the, because you basically like if you did a family reunion now, it's a lot of women with no their husband is not there, their baby, the children's father is not at the family reunion. So if you ask, okay, who's the father of the children, what's his name, because I mean the the family tree consists of the patriarchal father, or and mother. The mother didn't have the children by themselves. It was a father involved, right, or a man involved. And it's like, yeah, I would imagine it would be a lot of question marks in a family tree on the who the father is. They know who the children are, right? The children is with the mom, but it's a whole bunch of question marks. It'd be a whole, like, if you had to do a family tree, a audit of who's the family. A lot of those women probably don't feel comfortable giving the man's name, or maybe they would. I don't know, but you got to understand, it'll probably be some question marks. Maybe they'll probably say they'll give some fictitious name or something. John Wick is the father. you know, Biggie, Nathaniel Smalls. I mean, it's not funny, but it is funny because this is the downfall of civilization. Unfortunately, this is not something that's good. I was thinking about this earlier because it was just something I wanted to talk about, because I was actually thinking about talking about this before, but I was thinking about when I was talking about before about the grandmas today. Like, the grandmas today, they're not with grandpa. The grandparents now of the generation that will basically be the grandparents of Gen Zers and Generation Alpha. Those grandparents are basically, they're not together. Grandpa is not with grandma. Grandma, um, she's waking up. Maybe she may or may not wake up. Like my grandma, she used to wake up, on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and cook her eggs. She liked to make her eggs stringy. I still remember how my grandma used to make her eggs. She used to kind of run a little bit, like it wasn't really hard like I liked them. It was kind of stringy. But my grandfather, he used to have his own spot at the table in the kitchen. That was his. Everybody knew that was his favorite spot. That's like 1980s, 1990s, right? Like 2025. grandma may not even cook breakfast for Saturday morning or Sunday morning, you know. Um, she's probably sleeping in or watching Netflix or might be even on YouTube, you know, watching her favorite podcast or might be on her favorite podcast on a panel, you know, chomping to the bits. And also like grandpa, he's, you know, he's somewhere else. He's either living in an apartment or living in his house, you know, with his second family, or maybe he's just, you know, kind of you know, just you know, I would say a divorced bachelor, you know, where I call it divorced bachelor because basically you got quite a few men that they actually have children, but because their children live with the mother, it's almost like they're a bachelor again, but they're not because they already have kids. Like you really can't the definition of a bachelor is someone that's never a male that has never been married, and I think usually does not have children. I don't know if children have anything to do with that, but I think it's definitely I definitely know not married. But you got a lot of men that they've already been married and they're divorced and they're like they're not technically a bachelor anymore. They're not in a by definition a bachelor, but they live a life just like very similar to a bachelor that has never been married before. And that's what you seeing now. The new age grandpas, you know, they're single. They're either probably complaining about the dating market or, you know, they might be traveling or whatever they're doing. They're coping with being a single dad, right? With, you know, basically living by themselves or maybe they might have another family. They finally figured it out. You know, some guys figure it out. You know, I remember one of my homies I went to high school with, he was friends with another guy that he was like a grade above. And his first, you know, let's just give him a name. Let's call him let's call him Jamal. Jamal was like a year older than us. We used to all walk home to school together. And basically Jamal's first baby mama was like the strag from hell. Okay. I mean, he just man, he had a hard time, man, dealing with this woman. She was all over the place. She was so fast. She actually died. She died like I think someone shot her. I think someone shot and killed her. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but she ended up dying like you know, when she was in her late 20s or something like that, or she died basically, um, you know, in her like adulthood, like a long time ago. And his second wife, I don't know where he met his second wife. I think at his work, his job or something like that. But he finally figured it out. He was like, I think it's safe to say that yeah, Jamal figured it out. Like he kind of his second wife was pretty much kind of very similar to him, younger. You know, he's in his late 40s, you know, mid 40s, and she's like probably, you know, close to 10 years younger than him, maybe like somewhere within that range. And she's got the same type of kind of like quirky, kind of like, you know, like whatever you got to understand. Okay, like the whole, let's just say, kind of educated lame type of dynamic or personality, if you want to call it, that black men, well, quite a few black women, I mean, don't like it, but a lot of black men do have that personality of kind of being like a black Seinfeld, you know, kind of being quirky, some one-liners, just kind of boring, and laid back, casual, cool but casual. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a lot. That's quite a few. That's a lot of black men, right? A lot of the guys I went to school with, growing up in the suburbs. That's pretty much the content, like the standard. And it's like, yeah, that was what he chose. Like he chose his second wife was like a suburban, just contemporary of an educated lame. Almost, you could even say a female educated lame. And he did well with her. He's been married for like over 10 years. They got children. You could tell, you could even tell, like you could look at his children by his wife, and then you look at his children by his baby mama. I don't know if he had three baby mom or two baby mamas before he got married. I'm not sure, but his children that he had before he got married is like, I mean, night and day in comparisons as far as how they act and everything like that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, he finally figured it out. Like, a lot of times I think what guys do, a lot of dudes that's quote unquote fit that whole educated lame type of dynamic, they try to get with women that really don't like them. And what I mean by get with women that really don't like them is they get with women that either is trying to game them because they might have potential, or they hard working, and they can keep a job or whatever. Um, or they get with women that they kind of want, but they don't. They not really the type of men that they normally date. They normally date like thugs and hoodlums, and then they trying to get with this chick, and she's not one of your contemporaries. You know what I'm saying? She's kind of into dudes that are rough around the edges and might have a few felony records, and go in and out of jail every now and again. And it's like, yeah, I think when a lot of men do that, is they're trying to fit a square into a round hole, and it's like, yeah, when you do that, and then you figure it out, you like, well, I mean, I grew up in the burbs, and I pretty much, what I'm saying, I had a paper route, and went to Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. I might want to get a chick that, probably, you know, um, don't, ain't from the hood, right? That I might want to get somebody that has more of the life that I've had, that have more understanding, and then some dudes figured out, some dudes don't, but, Jamal, he figured it out, and it's like, yeah, like, um, a lot of guys, man, they end up having to, like I say, be a single again, and then they figure it out, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think I figured it out to a certain extent, very much so. Um, after I had, got married and divorced, I mean, I definitely figured out, okay, it's certain things you got to really consider, what I'm saying? Like, you can have, and I've said this many times, I got to say it again. You can have sex with any woman, almost just about any woman. I mean, it is a such thing as bad coochie or bad pussy, but it's a woman gotta really be fucked up to have some bad coochie. I'm just say that. Like, I mean, women typically, the standard, like, for a woman to have bad vag, I mean, she really have to go out of her way to have bad vag. Because really in most cases, women is just designed to, it's, almost be like plug and play. So the idea of having bad vag is like you really just really not taking care of yourself. You letting dudes run in and out of you. You not keeping up your hygiene and you're unsanitary and all of that. Like, and it's like the thing is that all things being considered, on average, most women have pretty decent pretty decent vag. And it fits okay. It works. Everything is a go. I mean, you can get with any woman and have babies or have sex, and that's how that works. That's called nature. And it's like, well, after that, if you want to actually have a family and be able to be to cohabitate with one another, it takes a certain level of understanding on both parties, and chemistry, personality. It's a lot of correlations that have something to do with like you being able to cohabitate with someone and have a long-term relationship. Like, and that's one of the things that young people absolutely don't know, and the older people may not be communicating with them about that well, or maybe they just young and dumb and full of cum too, but they don't know. And a lot of young people have done this. They think that, and even women believe that they can do this to men, where they can basically just kind of have sex with anybody that they want to have sex with and then make it work somehow. Now, I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but in most cases, it's about like chemistry and personality, and like having commonalities of things that you like. Those are the indicators of, okay, you probably gonna be able to live with this woman. And even to be honest, like, when you're around each other, that's a good indication that you got chemistry. The like things that don't really necessarily have anything to do with sex, those are important. As far as, are you going to be able to basically wake up every day, raise children with this woman? This woman, I mean, is this man the man that I can listen to and wake up with every day? You find those things out over time, through conversation, through being around each other, opposite of actually having sex with one another. Because the sex part doesn't necessarily, this a lot of times what people think, because people are animalistic brain, yeah, think more animalistically, that they think that, if that's actually even a word, like, they think that they can just have sex and then everything will work itself out. And that's not how that works. Like, if you want an actual long-term relationship and something to be with someone, you have to have things in common with that person. Now, those things in common will be, well, I mean, and this is kind of messes up a lot of women. Women try to be men and try to be fucking all kind of dudes all over the place. A lot of men don't want women like that. They don't want a woman that's, sleeping with everybody in town, because it's like, that's just disrespectful. And a lot of women have a problem with that. A lot of these new age, carefree, they've been listening to their friends and listen to older women talk about date everyone and have fun and enjoy your whole phase. And then when it comes down to, settling down with someone, well, while you had all of that fun, I mean, dudes talk, and dudes, got all of these dudes that, basically all of these bodies that you done been with, and now you're trying to settle down with me. You want me to hold your hand and sing in the park, and you busting it down on the same day with some the other dude, you know, that you met, you know, years and years ago. You know, you fucked him on first sight, on first date, and then now you want me to hold hands with you and go take you to this fine dining restaurant and have these conversations and talk on the phone with you for weeks and weeks and weeks. No, I want that pussy the same day as you gave you know, old boy that same day that you met, you know, back in 2018. You know, I want that same treatment. You know what I'm saying? Like don't string me along when the other dude, you gave him head and pussy on the first date. You know, and that's and I, you know, a lot of, you know, Kevin Samuels talked a lot more about that. It mean that, you know, these women trying to, you know, change the game and you know, date differently, put a higher standard on the new guy. When your other dude, man, you let him hit you with behind the bleachers in high school, you know, um, during fifth period, and it's like you want this new dude to take you on, you know, a shopping spree, take you out to dinner, you know, buy you, you know, some type of purse, or, you know, pay for your hair and your nails. And it's like, yeah, and it's so bad. I'm gonna tell you how bad it is. I saw a chick, she's a dating coach. She's telling women to lie about your past. Lie about the past, the men that you've been with in the past. And I started to read the comments of what the video that she, you know, was talking about, and the women were like co-signing it because they know they fucked up in the past, and they was just giving, you know, the fine guy that they really wanted to get with, they was giving him the pussy real fast, and you know they was having fun and living carefree, you know, and they like, you know, got a dumpster fire of a life now, and they meet a new dude. They don't want to give up the cookies and everything that easy with the new dude. They want to actually string the new guys along and pretend, you know, like Alan Roger Curry called them, trying to be a, they're trying to cosplay a wholesome good girl now, when they was fucking, you know, on first dates in college. They wasn't even having dates in college. They were just Netflixing and chilling in college. And then now, you know, they're trying to be, you know, this wholesome good girl, putting on a show, trying to, you know, catch Mr. Right, you know, and knowing damn well, you know, you was with Mr. Pass, and you was giving him all the ass off, you know, off just some, you know, having a bag of weed and some drinks, you know, and some damn back and some black some Philly blunts, you know, and that was all it would, that's all it took, you know. But it's like, okay, now the new standard for the same box that's all used up, the same badge that's all used up, got a couple kids, you trying to have me pretend like you a brand new version. I gotta buy flowers, candy, roses, and then basically give you some type of awesome romantic experience, you know. No. And it's like, yeah, that's a problem for a lot of women. And it's like, it's easily solvable. Just treat the man just fine. Like if you don't, I mean, a lot of these women don't know how to pick men. It's another thing. That's why I'm like, to be honest, I'm at the point, I'm past the point where I'm like, well, a lot of these women basically need like a fucking matchmaker. And you know, really, they really need more than that, because it's not, a matchmaker is not going to help a delusional person. And that's from women that are, you know, have been matchmakers, that have been, you know, basically in that business. They've had problems with women because they had these high expectations that they don't even qualify for, you know. And you know, basically, I think that, you know, a lot of these women just, they just have to unfortunately suffer, but they're gonna do that anyway. But they need to somehow or another be hit with reality, and unfortunately, life does that. But you know, if it's a way to hit them with reality so they can understand, you really don't have no room for negotiation. Like it's like a lot of times people try to negotiate like they have the cards and they have the power. And unfortunately, a lot of women don't understand that shit is old and dried up. I mean, after you like 35, you can look good or not. You got a kid or two, you're not the value that you were when you were 25 with no children, with it looked a whole lot better, with basically um kind of prime, a prime ovary with eggs. And you'll never be that valuable at the later age, and that's okay. That's how we all end up. We all get older and older. That's called life, right? Father time waits for no one. And it's like, they have these um delusions where they still believe in their head that they're the same 25-year-old. I mean, yeah, you technically are the same 25-year-old, but you're older, man. You know what I'm saying? Like you, you got the 2025 models and you got the 2012 models. Ma'am, you're 2012. Okay? You still have a CD player in your car. You may or may have an aux button. Probably most likely not. You know, you know, you still, have a freaking 2012 automotive parts. They haven't come out with 2025 parts yet. I mean, it's like, I mean, it's just, it's okay. I have a 2020, I have a 2012. I gotta get my battery. I gotta take my battery because it's draining something is draining the battery. So I gotta take it out, go back to the store, get another battery. Um, but yeah, all things is considered, it's some regular maintenance, some maintenance. It can get on the road. It's got some issues, but it'll still drive. And that's okay. But it's not a 2025. It's a 2012. And it's like, that's the whole thing. Is just, how do you help someone that doesn't understand reality? And it's very, very difficult to help someone that doesn't understand reality. And unfortunately, you got to also add a woman that doesn't want to deal or understand reality, and she has children attached to her. It's a very chaotic situation. And it leads down this road where you see this movie, Straw, and you see the extreme effects of that, of not wanting to understand reality, not wanting to deal with things, reality. Like, to be honest, it's very, very easy for a woman and even a man to live life. It's a lot easier when you don't ignore the red flags when you're meeting someone. When you're very serious about having some standards and actually having a standard for yourself and others, because you choosing based off of those standards, and you're not delusional. Okay, life is hard and you can't make any bad decisions. You got to choose wisely. You can't choose based off of the vibe, how good he looks, how wonderful he makes you feel, how good his sex is. And the thing is like, I was earlier I was listening to who I was listening to. I think Ed. And it was some dude on there that he was talking about men that don't make $60,000 shouldn't even be trying to have kids and get with women. And people were basically like lighting him up, in the chat, and Ed definitely was, going back and forth with him. But the thing is this, that's not necessarily the reality as far as what women choose, especially black women. When their choices, when you look at their choices, their, as a whole, their choices in men, there's is nothing to do with any money. It's not anything. Like, I'm talking about the guy that they choose, you know the children's father that they choose to be the father of their children, has nothing to do with income. I mean, like, you income has nothing to do with the choices of, like, if you look at the ultimate choices and even what, like, they actually choose, you know, has nothing to do with income. And a couple of the things that I noticed that, and this is not just black women, but women in general, but primarily black women, because um, a lot of black women choose it's not necessarily based off of hypergamy. It's like a couple of things that I noticed that they choose men off of. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I take full advantage of this. I enjoy, I'll even say I enjoy that they choose this way. It is no, like, okay, if that man, whoever I think he went by Red Pill or whatever, if he was right, as far as, I mean, that was just his like, I guess you could say, eugenist philosophy or thought that, okay, men that make less than $60,000 or whatever, or less than $90,000 shouldn't even breed, right? Well, I mean, obviously, you know, one of the things that I noticed that primarily black women talk about, they talk a lot. They talk a good game. Their PR team is working nonstop, but the reality of how they live and who they choose to actually lay with and be with, it's definitely, in secret. A lot of them, are, they don't show who they're with for a reason. But and then want to actually take a step further, and after that relationship dissolves, not even point out who that actual man was and what actually happened and all of that, is because it's not based off of the PR team and what the PR team is saying. The PR team is that you got to have money, and you need to make a lot of money, and you need to be respectful, and you need to be emotionally intelligent, and all these other things. And that's just what the PR team, the Hive, let's just call it the Sisterhood Hive PR team, says on different social medias, all across the social media space. But what actually happens offline is something totally different. And women, primarily black women, choose based off of, what they actually want. And it has nothing to do with income. And it's a few things. One of those things is fun, how fun you are. Like, if you can crack jokes, if you can, constantly you know, almost be a flirtatious prankster that is, you know, just makes her laugh and you know, have fun. You know, they like that. You know, outside of that is looks. Okay, they like you know, they like looks, right? That you know, it is what it is. You know, you would think that men like looks, women like looks way more than men. And thirdly is they like to have sex, and the better you are at having sex, the better. And none of those things I mentioned have anything to do with money, have anything to do with how much money you make. And that's who they choose. It's not what I say they should choose, how I think they should choose. I mean, that's kind of the, you know, problem that a lot of times, a lot of what black women don't like about YouTube guys or red pill guys, because they try to be the person to say they should choose this person and that person and that person. And, you know, they don't like that. They want to choose who they want to choose. But the problem is the men that they're choosing, it's not working out great. It's not, it's like it's a short-term thrill, and it might be fun and it might be enjoyable, but in the long run, it's a complete dumpster fire, you know. If you need an example, you know, all you have to do is turn on, you know, turn any lower to middle rungs, you know, black community, and you can see it. And the thing is that, you know, that's why they, you know, have a problem with the guys online because talking, because, you know, they point out the obvious is that you're saying what you want as far as a PR representative, but what you actually are choosing is totally different. It's totally different than what you actually are saying. It's basically cap. The things that you're saying are cap, fully cap, because when you get off of the internet, who you actually kissing up and hugging on and being with is those guys that, like I said, have looks, fun, and great sex. It has nothing to do with any income, any hypergamy, or anything like that. And, you know, in the perfect world, you know, I understand, like, you know, I think that's great, you know, but unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic society that's based off of basically the conquest and colonialism of different peoples across the world, including black people in transatlantic slaves trade, and the you know, hundreds and hundreds of years of profit from that trade, and human resources that were, you know, basically stolen, and profited off of. You know, basically that's the system that we're in, and that system, uh, if the men are not, you know, basically competitive in that system, they're not going to financially win in that system. And the women, the men that the women are choosing don't fit in well into that system, unfortunately. And you find, you know, others like Asians, and others, and even whites, they're they're choosing men, you know, basically they tend to choose men that do earn a higher amount of money, do have a higher standard, and you see, you know, basically the benefits that they have from that, especially Asians. You know, I mean, white people, I'll be honest, you know, trying to, you know, kind of cape for white people is kind of hard because, you know, they all over the place. Asians, I definitely, you could say, like, I'll just even say Indians. The Indian standard is engineer, doctor, accountant, you know, maybe you know, some type of STEM field like scientist or chemist, something like that. Or maybe if you're a successful entrepreneur, those are the women that basically those are who women are trying to choose, because that's the standard. They still have to be accountable for their family. They have to show and a lot of times they got to get the approval from the father, and it's definitely a patriarchal household. Basically an extended family patriarchal household. And they have to get approval from those fathers, their father, their family to accept this guy, right? And that guy, he has to be competitive to be accepted. And that's how that works. And it's like, black women are not doing that because it ain't no father. It ain't no father. The black patriarchy probably, basically I would say died, or any remnants of it from basically the 60s and the 70s with basically I call it the, three strikes and you're out, feminism, welfare, the welfare state, or welfare expansion, and then the crack cocaine, basically uh basically the drug wars in the 1980s, starting from the late 70s and the 1980s, basically the crack epidemic. You know what I'm saying? That those are the biggest three things that destroyed a lot of what you would say was the last remnants of any type of black patriarchal household in America. And then after that was basically women that could choose whoever they want to. And it wasn't based off of any type of familial acceptance. It was not based off of any type of this man that I choose has to be accepted by other men in the family. And it's like, that's where you have all of this, vibe. He's got a good vibe. He's, fun. He's his I mean, his sex is great. His sex game is great. And it's like, I mean, to be honest, I mean, like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I I profit. I benefit from this. I benefit from, women choosing based off of this, because I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I ain't saying I'm fucking Tyson Bedford, but nigga, I'm 6'3", and I shit definitely have played a whole bunch of different sports and all kinds of shit, like athletic, muscular. You know, I ain't gonna say I'm fucking can crack jokes and shit, but I mean, I know how to make women laugh a little bit. I definitely could be the fun guy. I mean, not necessarily as a standard, but I mean, yeah, I could do that. And then hell, shit, sex game. I mean, shit, no problem there. So I'm not gonna. I mean, I benefit from this delusion. I'm not gonna. A lot of men benefit from this delusion, or let's just say benefit from women making these choices. To choose based off of these. These three things, right? Fun, looks, and high, you can say high level sexual mastery. I'll even say to a point where I would even say a lot of women do look at black women with a certain level of jealousy to a certain extent, because they do have the freedom to choose based off of their hedonistic wiles or hedonistic desires. A lot of other women they don't have the freedom. Well, other women, non-black women, do have the freedom, but they still have some type of restraint to fit into the competitive society, or you could even call it a greater society. So they can't really take risks like that, and be accepted. Because I mean, to be a single mother in a black community is accepted. And to be a single mother in the white community, it's growing towards acceptance, it's leading towards acceptance, but it's still not accepted as a whole. Like in the white community, quote unquote, especially in middle, I'll just say moving towards from middle to upper middle class and upper class white communities, it is not accepted to be a single mother. Okay, like you'll be laughed at, people will make fun of you, they'll make fun of your children at school. you know where's your daddy at? Like man, they're really hardcore, man. Just, um, very, very, very hardcore. You think black people be shooting at dozens and all of that type of stuff? White people do the same shit, if not worse. They make fun of other kids at school. They hard on kids in the neighborhood and all of that. So it's like, yeah, it's not acceptable. Asians, way, way less acceptable. Others like Jews and Arabians and Persians and Armenians, you could even say, they don't accept no fucking single mom. They can't base their choice in men off of hedonistic desires, because that's basically what I'm saying. Like black women have the autonomy and privilege to be bohemian hedonist. you know Basically, when you're choosing based off of looks, fun, and sexual desires, or high sexual mastery, that's basically freedom to choose hedonism. I mean, that's basically what I'm saying. Like, and a lot of black women, that's who they choose. They don't really. If you corner them, they will admit it, but they will not own up to it outright and say, yeah, this dude was funny, he was tall, he looked good, and he fucked the shit out of me, and I came back for more, and then until I got pregnant. Like, if you corner them, they'll admit it. Like, you got me. But in the grand scheme of things, in let's just say the black PR group or black PR team, they have their discussions. They don't admit that shit. They don't admit that I basically got fucked. I got fucked so good. I forgot what the fuck. I forgot what the hell my name was. I mean, he literally fucked me till I got retarded, and I had no choice but to get pregnant anyway. I mean, and it's like, don't get me wrong. I understand hedonistic desires. I get it. But you got to understand that it's consequences to that. In the grand scheme of things, as far as like when it comes to autonomous societies that's based off of capitalism, hedonism, it's not something that poor people can enjoy and have, no consequences for that. It's like the poor people really suffer for their hedonistic choices. Rich and wealthy people can exercise hedonism to a certain private, if they keep it to a certain private level, to where it doesn't get exposed to the public. Like, for example, P. Diddy, all other kind of different people, they, dealing with women, and then the women suing them, and then, next thing you know, the state is trying to lock them up from some like charge or whatever, that has something to do with some type of sex trafficking or whatever. Like, that's the new thing that, the state, I'll just call it the state, is trying to do to, wealthy and rich men that have, basically just tapped into hedonism, basically have been extreme level hedonists, I would even say. So the thing is that, yeah, rich and wealthy have the ability to do that because they don't have it's no consequences. They already have what is needed to survive. They are already, above the level of the average person. You know, whatever happens, they have a baby, they have enough money to take care of a baby, a whoopsie baby, or you know, a little sex baby or lust baby, whatever you want to call it. They have the money to take care of that responsibility. They're, you know, if they had a bunch of sex and you know they, you know, basically didn't want to go to work, well, they don't necessarily have to go to work. They, you know, can work from home. You know what I'm saying? Like it's certain, you know, things they could do because they have the capital to do it. Whereas a poor person, you know, poor, you know, Tasha in the hood, she picked a dude, you know, from you know, a neighboring apartment building that, you know, had some really, that was tall and had some really good dick. She got dick down one summer, and now she got a baby. And he left, and he had to go back to New Jersey. He was only in town for the summer, visiting his, living with his grandparents. Well, Tasha is going to be the one that's going to really suffer from that scenario because she don't have any money to not suffer from the capitalistic system, because you know, basically she was at the bottom before she had the child, and having the child may exacerbated that situation of her off, of her being financially on the bottom. You know, and then now you have a child with you to take care of you. I mean, to basically to take care of, and you're already, you know, basically on the edge financially. And it's, you know, I know these things don't want to be said. Like these things are, you know, the sisterhood PR team does not want these things to be talked about or expressed because it's embarrassing. But I just gotta, you know, understand it's reality. You know, like going back to chess, um, it's, you know, the thing is that these things were done, you know, to you know, basically these things were done